Okay, so our group will be presenting on the topic artificial intelligence in healthcare and medical sciences. Our group consists of myself, Azwar Abdul Salam, Orko Mitra, and Gauri Jayaprakash. The reason why we chose this topic is because me and Orko, being from the Department of Electronics, have a lot in common with biological applications. And in the case of Gauri, she has done a couple of internships in this very topic, and she's quite interested in the field. So this is why we have chosen to present on this topic. So coming to the introduction, um, so application of AI in healthcare mainly involves practices such as drug development, treatment protocol development, patient monitoring, personalized medicine, etc. So these goals are basically achieved by analyzing large amounts of electronic health data, such as treatment or prevention methods, disease symptoms, etc., with patient outcomes. Several healthcare companies such as Mayo Clinic, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, etc., as well as tech giants such as Google, IBM are extensively researching and developing AI algorithms for healthcare applications. Uh, the history of AI in healthcare. So the 1970s saw a proliferation of AI research, specifically in medicine. An international AI journal, Artificial Intelligence in Medicine, was founded, and in 1980, the American Association for Artificial Intelligence was established with a subgroup on medical applications. Research in the 60s and 70s produced the first problem-solving program known as Dendrol. While it was designed for applications in organic chemistry, it provided the basis for a subsequent system, Mycin, considered one of the most significant early uses of artificial intelligence in medicine. In the 80s and 90s, popular AI techniques like artificial neural networks, Bayesian networks, support vector machines, etc., began to be used for healthcare related problems. In 1985, the first robot assisted surgery was conducted in Vancouver, Canada. Success of AI in healthcare. So in 2013, we saw an important milestone in the application of AI, where scientists at the Case University in South Korea developed an algorithm called LUNET, which can identify lung cancer and breast cancer with an accuracy of 97%. In the following year, Atomwise launched an AI-based program which was successful in identifying drugs that was able to reduce the symptoms of Ebola virus in a day. Blue Dot, a Canadian-based startup specializing in the field of AI in healthcare, has made some notable developments, such as it was able to indicate the possibility of an epidemic with unusual pneumonia 9 days before the announcement by WHO. It was also able to identify India and Brazil as possible epicenters of COVID-19 well before they did turn out to be epicenters, and it was also able to make accurate predictions relating to Ebola virus and Zika virus outbreaks. Coming to the application of AI in radiology, so AI methods excel at recognizing complex patterns in image data and providing quantitative assessments of radiographic characteristics. A study at Stanford created an algorithm that could detect pneumonia in patients with a better average F1 score than trained radiologists. So uh, uh, many AI algorithms are used in this field, but convolutional neural networks are the most prevalent algorithm used in this domain. Many many companies such as Isometrics, QIVM, RoboVision has become available to provide a trainable machine learning platform. Many professionals are optimistic about the future of AI in radiology, as it not only improves diagnosis but also cuts down on the time, allowing doctors to see more patients. Coming to disease modeling, we can try to model the different symptoms of a disease by observing some variables like level of sugar and oxygen in the cells, tracking lipid, enzyme, and protein profiles. This may help identify potential treatments on the basis of the observed precise biological cause of the disease. For example, researchers at biotech firm Burge have developed a model to identify previously unknown cancer mechanisms using tests conducted on more than 100 cancerous and healthy human cell samples. They identify the importance of certain naturally occurring molecules in cancer metabolism and help the group to develop a new drug for curing people with advanced pancreatic cancer. Neural networks and Bayesian networks are being increasingly used for disease diagnosis or classification these days. Gauri will be taking over from here.
So next we'll be talking about drug discovery. So as of 2016, an average of 10 years is being spent on developing new drugs, and this require a huge capital investment of the order of billions of dollars. It is basically a high risk, high return industry that is costly and time consuming. So several AI algorithms have been developed such as CSP, which is used to search for drugs in a predefined chemical space, and this space is initially carefully chosen by humans. The rules are predefined and coded in order to generate novel character strings that correspond to molecules within the specified domain of chemicals, which could produce the effect that is desired. So, using these AI algorithms, many such permutations of the drugs can be prepared using certain simple rules and according to the state space we have defined. Next slide. So here we have outlined the traditional drug discovery process. So initially what we do is we find new medications based on the existing knowledge of the biological target, and then we search for a small organic molecule that inhibits or activates the function of some protein that is required. Usually which involves the design of some molecules that are complementary in the shape and charge of the biomolecular target. Next slide. Here you can see that drug discovery is actually a very expensive process. So the higher estimates actually are about $2.5 billion and up to 15 years, which could take the research of bringing a drug to the market. Next slide. So here we are outlined the process in which we could use AI for creation of new drugs. So we have a lot of structured and unstructured data of all the molecules and the targets, and we can use this to create a knowledge graph. So using all this unstructured data, we can feeding in the targets on which the drug has to act, and then carrying out the lead optimization and the clinical trials. And if we feed in all of this data to the knowledge graph, then we'll be able to create an optimized drug from all the molecules and data that is fed into the model. Next slide. Here you can see the conventional drug design method in which we first design based on our existing knowledge using all the molecules. Then we synthesize the organic compound or the drug in the lab, and then we test it with some experimental objects. So this is a very time consuming and expensive process. So in this design stage of drug design, you can actually use a de novo design process. A de novo design can be used to mimic this compound design cycle. Next slide. So here you can see that first we will search and optimize from the different molecules which are available in our search space and create a drug. Then we'll create a computational model of this molecule that we have chosen, and then we will test it using some machine learning techniques to model and predict its properties, and also we'll carry out some computer simulation. So this is sort of like a generative model, and doing this entire process computation will help save a lot of money and also speed up the process. Next slide. Next, we'll be talking about the ambulance scheduling. So, emergency medicine has witnessed an increasing interest in the use of artificial intelligence algorithms for numerous applications. Ambulance and ambulance crews operate in a complex, budget constrained environment where demand is expected to increase. So much research is being done on the optimization of ambulance services through the development of integer programming models utilizing flexible flow shop scheduling techniques for integration of ambulance scheduling and ambulance crew scheduling. The shift scheduling rules are included as constraints in this model that schedule the processing of each incident on available ambulances. Next slide. The FFS's formulations for this integrated scheduling models are NP-hard. So this means that the number of cooperating ambulances and facilities in a metropolitan region leads to a large number of these decision nodes. So we could use some heuristic algorithms based on an extended disjunctive graph, which can be developed to solve such large problems with a lot of decision nodes. So, promising results are being obtained from constructive heuristics, taboo search, TS, and colony optimization, ACO, and hybrid heuristics. In the ambulance dispatching environment, a common heuristic approach is to dispatch the closest vehicle to the incident site with certain preemptions allowed for life threatening incidents. Now, other examples of heuristics for scheduling include shortest processing time, earliest due date, and first come, first served basis. Next, Orko will take over for the rest of the part.
Um, Thanks, Gauri. So we now come to the nurse scheduling problem. The nurse scheduling problem is similar to the professor scheduling problem that was done in class. So conflict resolution needs to be done to consider preventing two nurses working in the same shift. There are additional constraints that need to be taken care of, like total number of hours a nurse can work per week, the shifts a nurse can take, etc. Aled and Amosat had showed that NSP can be efficiently solved using constraint programming. The method ensures fairness to the nurses while keeping the constraints into consideration. Next slide. Now we consider the ICU scheduling problem. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected the whole world, and during the spikes, the ICUs are almost full. As we all know, some people need the treatment more than the others. Now, prognosis help in predicting the outcome of the disease for a particular person. A person with a higher chance of death needs to be allocated the ICU bed with a greater priority. Thus, incorporating the heuristics into the scheduling problem ensures a greater survival rate. Now, all the methods that had been discussed before consider discrete values. But sometimes the features of the patient can also take in real values. The search space then becomes infinite as all values are possible. The whole space cannot be represented as a graph, and thus the conventional methods fail. Metaheuristic algorithms help to optimize the search space. One such metaheuristic algorithm is particle swarm optimization. For optimizing the search space, an objective function is needed that allocates a value to each point in the space. The overall space is usually non-convex, so gradient-based methods don't lead to an analytical solution. Now, in the next slide, we talk about genetic algorithm. The features of the patients are usually fat. By fat data, we mean that there are more columns than samples. This is because the number of patients who are willing to give that data is quite sparse. So more features imply a larger search space, which is obviously difficult for the model, but most of the features are not even necessary. So selecting important features are necessary to have a better understanding of the overall model. There are several methods like PCA, uh, which can reduce the feature space, but the new feature space are not explainable as they use the eigenvectors to move into the new feature space. But there are methods like genetic algorithm which mimic the natural evolution to choose the best features. Since the features are chosen from a subset of the original features, it is more useful and more explainable as well. Now we move on to the dataset collection for healthcare. The dataset collection plays an important role for AI in healthcare and AI in general. But we also need to consider privacy, user privacy, and anonymization of the user data. From a given set of features, it is possible to obtain the particular user information which patients do not obviously want. Thus, user privacy becomes quite important. And before releasing the dataset, the features need to be checked to ensure no recognizable trait is present. Tripod is a checklist that allows unbiased data collection procedure and is followed in the healthcare community. Now we move on to the next slide, which talks about biases in AI. So there are several biases present in models, and they come from various sources as well. So algorithmic biasness refers to the biasness due to the preference of the model to a particular class in the hypothesis space. So one such example of algorithmic biasness is inductive bias, which is present in decision trees. It says that shorter trees are preferred over longer ones. This does not allow exploration of the entire search space, which is bad. The data might also be biased and not applicable to all demographics. For example, models that are built on Caucasian males may not be directly applicable to Asian females. Thus, increase of representation and active debiasing is needed to make the model more generalizable. Faults of the models need to be mentioned before use in the medical context so that people are aware of the pros and cons of the model. Now we come to the metrics that are used in healthcare. AI is very widely used for prognosis and diagnosis. In prognosis, we try to predict the likely outcome of a person having the disease, while in diagnosis, we try to find if the person has the disease or not. We shall mostly talk about the metrics for choosing a model in diagnosis. The accuracy is not the best metric for diagnosis. The data might be unbalanced, which can lead to errors. For example, in cancer, usually in 100 people, only one person has cancer. So if we have a model which classifies all people as not having cancer, it has a 99% accuracy. The accuracy is supposedly good, but we all understand that the model is bad as it is not able to recognize the person having cancer. In medical context, we are more interested in the false negatives and the false positives, and F1 is a good metric for that. F1 score provides a score for one threshold also, and thus we move on to area under ROC curve, which is the plot of the sensitivity versus 1 minus specificity. And it gives us the idea of the change in F1 over the varying threshold. Now, people are more concerned with high sensitivity as they do not want any false negatives. So, keeping the sensitivity fixed, the model having a higher specificity is sometimes chosen. The models give better results on different metrics, so it is considered it is important to choose the appropriate model, keeping the domain knowledge in mind. So this concludes our presentation. Thank you.